Alexandra, please come out. Alexandra is, you're in the lab, the dog cognition lab at Barnard College.
That's right. It is the Horowitz Dog Cognition
What is dog
Lab.
cognition?
Well, I'm interested in the dog mind and what the dog is thinking. And so we look at dog behavior and we try to come up with ideas about what they know.
It seems awfully hard to know what a dog is thinking. I can't tell what some people are thinking.
It's true. I mean, and at least it helps because people can tell us what they're thinking. And dogs, you have to infer it from their tails and their heads and their behavior. But that's what we do.
It's great. So from their tails, you get information from the tail.
Yes, we will be
I've been
looking
talking to
at
the wrong
tails
end
today.
of the dog.
Dogs talk to tails, as you know. Yes.
Yes, they do. Yes, they're very interested in tails.
Yeah.
Well. So, why don't you just get into it and show us how much time you're going to take to do it?
I think it'll take me about 10 minutes.
The about part is
precisely 10 minutes.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Here we're going to start the clock when you're ready. Tell me when you're ready.
All right. Go.
Start.
So I am interested in how animals experience time. And researchers have started to ask and answer this question, but they had to be pretty creative because obviously, unlike us, animals can't tell us what they're thinking. We have to look at their behavior. We know that they experience time, of course, and they do this through what are called circadian rhythms, or the biological clock. We have this too. It's our sense of, for instance, when we should wake up in the morning, or when we should eat, or when we should go to sleep. And animals might be even more in touch with this sense than we are, because we rely on clocks and calendars. But think about what birds do. They just rely on their own sense and the changing length of the day to know when it's spring and when they should look for a mate. Or squirrels, same thing, when it's fall and when they should bury acorns. And as we all know, cicadas have been counting not 16, not 18, but exactly 17 years before they appear from underground. But what researchers in animal cognition are interested in really is, do animals think about themselves traveling through time the way we do? Do they think about the past and plan for the future? Do they mental time travel? That's what we call it. And one way psychology tries to study this is through what's called episodic memory. Memories of episodes or events in our life. And we all have these. They could be really profound things like the first day you went to school, you might have a memory of that, or your last birthday party. But they're even small things like remembering how long ago you came into this room and sat down. So here's an example of how we might test episodic memory. Let's say you love ice cream. This seems plausible, right? And you like oatmeal raisin cookies, but not exactly as much. Okay, so one day after school, you are miraculously given an ice cream cone and an oatmeal raisin cookie. But before you get a lick or a bite, your mom says you have to go do your homework, right? So you're spirited away to do vocabulary and fractions for hours and hours, and you put them down on the table in the meantime. You come back about 5 hours later, exhausted, and you're told that you can have just one treat. Which one do you choose? The ice cream or the cookie that you've left on the table? I think you know which you should choose. The ice cream is gone, baby. It has melted away. It's been 5 hours sitting on the table. So you take the cookie and you run. We can do this because we can think back to how long before we put that ice cream on the table. And so researchers have started to ask animals basically the same question, ice cream or cookie. And they started by studying this bird, a western scrub jay. In nature, this bird likes to cache food. They hide food in secret places to eat later. So in the lab, researchers gave them 2 foods to hide. One of their favorite foods, waxworms, and also peanuts. Well, they love waxworms. They're obviously terrifically yummy, but unfortunately, they go bad after about a day. They rot. But peanuts, as you know, can stay in your pantry for like 3 years, and they're still pretty good. So researchers let them hide these foods in a tray in their cage, and then they took them out of their cage. And here's where it gets interesting. If the researchers put the jays back in their cage the same day, then they went right for the waxworms and dug them up and ate them. But if they put them back a few days later, they don't even bother going for their favorite food. They go to the peanuts, and they dig those up. They know the waxworms are rotten. They've done the same type of study with great apes, with chimpanzees and orangutans and bonobos. These animals love frozen juice, as it turns out, and like grapes okay. So if researchers hide these two foods and then let them search for them, after 5 minutes, they search for the frozen juice. But if it's been an hour, they go for the grapes. They know their frozen juice has melted like your ice cream. So I think this is pretty interesting evidence that they're thinking about the past. What happened, when it happened, where it happened. I think it's stunning, but the question that most people want to know, especially in my field of research, is when I leave home, does my dog know how long I've been gone? Does it matter if I'm gone 5 minutes or 3 hours, right? So actually, researchers have recently investigated this important question and published the results in Applied Animal Behavior Science, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. What they did was videotape dogs' behavior. They looked at dogs after owners left and when they came back 30 minutes, 2 hours, or 4 hours later. And what they were looking at was the dog's greeting of the owners when they came back. And so I'm going to show you a little bit of the behaviors they looked at. 3 behaviors showing you my dogs doing these greeting behaviors. The first one was lip licking. If you didn't catch it, that's a lip lick. That's a submissive, excited display. The next one was body shaking. This is something that dogs do when they feel a little bit of relief after a stressful period. And of course, they also looked at tail wagging. We don't really need to see this in slow motion, but it's so much fun to watch. So what they found was that when the owners had been gone longer, they saw higher rates of lip licking, body shaking, and tail wagging. They wagged faster or longer when the owners had been gone longer. In other words, dogs can tell how long you've been gone, and they're showing it in their delight to see you the longer you've been gone. So the question is then, how do dogs do this? How do they tell time without a clock? And here I have a theory about it. It's that dogs are smelling time. We all know that dogs are creatures of the nose. In other words, their primary sense is smell or olfaction. They have hundreds of millions more cells in their nose than we do. And that allows tracking dogs to do some kind of amazing feats. For instance, like telling the direction a person walked along a beach hours before, something we can't really tell visually, simply by detecting the difference in the strength of the odor between the first and the 5th footstep. The 5th footstep smells more strongly to dogs. It has more smell, so it's newer. And the first one smells weaker, so it's older. In other words, smell tells time for dogs. So if you think of those dogs left alone at the house, how are they using smell cues? Well, there are plenty of cues around the house, and I'm going to tell you 2 of them. The first smell cue around the house is us. We stink. Even those of us who are well showered, at least we smell very strong to dogs all the time. And our smell is all over the house, but it gets less strong over time. So the dog can use that smell of us to try to figure out how long we've been gone. The second clue is the day. The day actually smells differently as it proceeds. So in a room, warm air rises through the morning and hits the ceiling and new air comes underneath. The dog, with that nose of his, can tell basically the time of day from the smells of the air. So I've yet to test this theory, but I have some theories. I have some ideas about how to test. And this is one of the joys of science, is you come up with theories about how things work, and then you come up with a test for it. So what do we know about animal time? They aren't using clock time, obviously, but they do seem to mentally time travel. And they mark time by the important events in their life, how far we are to them, or how long ago in the past they've been. If you want to know a little bit about what this is like, all you have to do is take off your watch, stop looking at clocks, and start listening to your own body and noticing your habits and the clues of the environment. And that will give you a little bit of sense of what the animal's experience of time might be. Thanks.
Whoa! That was great. That was great. And you know, time seemed to stand still. It was so interesting. There was the great physicist Richard Feynman used to do experiments with time. He'd read a book and try to figure out how much time had passed while he was reading. He'd just try to guess. But he also did an experiment with smell, because he wondered if we have lost the ability that dogs have to smell that in an acute way, in a very sensitive way. So he had friends stay in a room while he left, and they took a book off a bookshelf and opened it up. That's all they did, was open it up and put it back. And he came in and smelled all the books in the bookshelf. And he went to the one that they had touched, and he said, "That's the one," and he was right. So I tried this with my grandchildren on vacation. I left, and they picked out a book, and they put it back. And I went to the book right next to the one that was chosen. It was pretty close. Do you think that we have this ability that we're not paying attention to?
Well, in fact, our sense of smell is pretty good. I mean, the dog sense of smell is profoundly better, but we have a lot of ability. We just ignore it because our eyes are so strong. You know, we can't overcome our interest in seeing. Yeah, I think we can smell pretty well, but I have to admit, in New York, we don't always want to smell everything around us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great job.